some of the challenges that I've had coming into Dyne is, there was no ERP, right?
Mm.
There was nothing. Again, everybody was working how they worked in the past in small pharma. If it's a 100 person company, I think I was actually employee 100. So if you're coming into that small of an organization, right, the CEO, the chief operating officer, the SMEs, you're all in a fairly condensed space, and you can have these conversations about what needs to happen and why it needs to happen. When you start moving towards a situation where you have two lead products, so we have two lead products that we're ready to really start moving on to phase 3 trials with, all of a sudden your volume starts to grow, and you're
Mm.
not able to keep track of that. As you go towards PPQs, whether it's in small pharma or big pharma or clinical stage companies, you're working on PPQs. Now, all of a sudden, you have to lot tag, you have to differentiate what batches can go where. If I'm only running in the US a trial, and now all of a sudden I decide to go to Europe, maybe I have label variants that I need to manage. So all of a sudden, what once was very easy because you have a couple batches here or there, now has become very difficult, and it's very fragmented. So typically when the supply chain professionals come in, it's at that stage. It's at the stage where things are, it's hitting the fan, and you have to try and figure it out and work through the challenges that are presented. You're not necessarily looking to roll towards KPIs and making
Mm.
sure that the suppliers are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're delivering, and that's the key point, is they're delivering. So the digitization process, like I said, you come in, you create an ERP in Excel, right? Excel is a planner's favorite tool. It's supply chain professional's favorite tool. It's what we use for pretty much everything, scenario planning and the like. And there's very few tools that bridge the gap between, like a PPDS in SAP and Excel, right? And if you're a small company like Dyne or another clinical company, you're not necessarily looking to jump into PPDS. That's a huge cost drag on the company, right? You may have an ERP. It may be smaller, but it'll do the work that you need. If you're a public company, you're going to need SOX compliance. You're going to need financial controls and things like that. And it may not be, the SAPs of the world. You may end up with something that is not great for planning. It's great for finance, but it's not good for planning. And let's be honest, an ERP is just simply a financial tool that they've built onto, right? So I'm not going to go buy Kinaxis, for $1 million a year. I don't have that funding. But what I'm going to look for is something kind of in between. And most of those things in between are I call them mom and pop shops, where they've identified an issue. It's not a clean, sleek type of solution, but it helps you get there. And that's part of the journey, right? So you have to start somewhere. You start in Excel, and then you kind of piecemeal yourself towards where you're going. So that's in my mind how that begins.